catching a reflection in the mirror of something standing in the corner of my room, watching me, observing me. Is it my imagination or insanity? A strange hum, a flash of light. I'm overcome, nothing but fright. Otherworldly beings taking me in the night. I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head? Looking at my hand, there's something there. Inside of me, I'm feeling oh so scared. Confusion and nasty fear. It wasn't just a nightmare. So loud, so bright, hypnotizing me figures lost in time. I'm tortured, surrounding me tonight. I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head? Where are they taking me? I'm swelling in me. Where are they taking me? Anxiety rising. Is it just in my head? Paralyzing panic. Is it just in my head? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head? their stories never told. The souls of the sea are now caressing me. Your final resting place, the ocean, the sea, the murder of men, no one will ever find them. Swirling and swirling, the warmth of the ocean, spinning with souls in motion. Take caution, my friend, this could be the end. A mermaid's tale, your mortal so frail.
Okay. Enough of that. This is a Saturday morning edition of Paranormal Roundtable. Now, you might wonder why we're doing a live stream. I say we, it's me, but we are testing the waters to find a good day slot. That's what this is. So when we're so backed up already on stories anyway, we have to get them out and get them done. One of my listeners had a question for me, and he says, you're doing a lot of work right now, furiously working. Are you expecting something bad? And I said, maybe. Not expecting it, but I'm prepared, because if something were to happen to me, I could have people get the information out, but it wouldn't be the same. So I'm trying to get as much information out as I can and trying to get caught up. There are a ton of people who have given me their stories, given me their information, wanting me to retell their encounters. And there's just a lot of information out there that I need to get out, and some of it, not a ton of it, but there's some of it that I can't really go into detail on or discuss in the way that I would like on YouTube. So we're trying to find a good spot to land a permanent day shift YouTube or Rumble. We want to do a permanent daytime, like every week that is going to be there during the day, because you get a different audience. You'll get a different audience during the day, during the week, in my opinion, and you'll get a different audience during the day on a Saturday or a Sunday. And we're still going to be on tonight. We're going to do the show is going to come on tonight. So I thought, why not try to figure out when the best time. Make sure the microphone's close enough where you guys can hear me. Can y'all hear me good? So we're trying to figure out where the sweet spot is, to figure out what the best time would be to come on and capture the most audience. Now, we do well after the fact. After we do the live stream, people will come and they will watch. And excuse me, but I'm having to work this morning. Got a bunch of stuff going on. Had one of our guards in an altercation last night. So whenever that happens, there's a lot of reports that have to be done and things that have to be taken care of. So like, for instance, last night we had a few hundred people in the chat, but I wake up today, this is an example, and there's 3,200 people have already watched last night's live stream. So there's people that are going to be trying to get caught up on last night's live stream. And so doing a show during the day today may sound counterproductive, but like I said, we're just trying to find the best time to do it so that we can get the most people in the chat during the day. And right now it's still kind of up in the air when that is. So if you guys could bear with us, as somebody said, a Sunday afternoon Rumble would be good. Well, the thing about Sunday day wouldn't work because we would be doing a Saturday night show, and then we're gonna do which is 8 to 10, and then we do an early Sunday show. So the Sunday wouldn't really work. Sunday would be the day or the evening from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. typically is the Sunday slot. And that slot works really well. That slot has given us a prime time. We've hit a sweet spot right there where we get the most people in the chat. And sometimes we'll even get up into the 700s on Sunday. And for good reason, because we typically have the best stories and information on Sunday. Here's what's coming up, though. Tuesday, we're going to do a Monday live stream during the day, too. Now, the reason, like I said, we're trying to find the best time. I think a Monday day side might be a good slot. I don't know. Because I don't want to do another night one when we're doing one Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we're trying to figure out what the best time was. Like on Thursday, after the Bonds and Booze, everybody was still pretty pumped. We got up into the 700s on the chat. And then on Monday day, we did one on a Monday a couple weeks ago, which seemed to work pretty well. And then we did, I don't remember if we did a Saturday. I don't think we did a Saturday. But anyway, here we are, Saturday morning. Now, it might have worked better if we'd done one later, but then we're going on again tonight at 8 o'clock. We're not going to not do that. We have guests coming. We got to bring them on and talk about stuff. We have things we got to talk about. So we can't do that. And so I also have several people that I need to interview. So we're trying to figure out the best way to interview them, whether we should do a pre-record and then drop them on the pre-record on Tuesdays, or if I should just do it live on a Tuesday. Tell me what you think in the comments. And I hate this to not give the people from Rumble and the other platforms much of a voice, but they don't really participate in the live to where I can ask them. So they really don't get a choice. And so now I got almost 4 weeks of no Spotify, 4 weeks of no, no shows being dropped on the 16 other the 15 platforms that we drop on. There's 15 of them altogether, and they're pretty much every podcast platform. So what I'm getting now is a bunch of people messaging me saying, "Why did you stop doing shows? Why are you not doing shows?" Those people are anti-YouTube. They got their reasons. I mean, I'm not knocking them, but they act like we're not doing anything because they're not paying attention and realizing that, hey, this is not about us not doing shows. This is about you not going to YouTube and watching them. So that is, and a lot of the information is now. Here's my dilemma, and I have to ask this as we wait for the chat to fill up a little bit. Do we do a show on Rumble and talk about a lot of really pertinent information, and then it doesn't get to the YouTube people? Not only will Rumble weed out some of the YouTube people because they just will not go. I know this from experience, but we're going to end up losing a lot of people who won't even come to YouTube. So if, from the podcast platforms. So if you're a podcast listener and that you're just a podcast listener, this isn't for you because you're not going to be listening to me on YouTube. Typically it's the younger people though. They just don't like YouTube. They don't want to watch a YouTube live. They just don't do it. And then they're definitely not going to go to Rumble and listen. So you're going to get a smaller audience that's going to listen to probably the most important information. And then you're going to, on top of that, you're going to get people who are not only are they not going to listen to you on Rumble, but they're not going to listen to you on YouTube. So, and then a lot of the people from YouTube aren't going to go to Rumble. So we're just trying to figure it out. We're trying to wade through it. All I can do is retell the encounters, give you the information that's important that needs to be told, do my part, and get caught up on some of these encounters that go way back. So today I'm going to do that. There were a few people. Justin, I'm going to be telling you one of your stories today. Thank you for that story. And I am so sorry, and I really hate this, but this one goes back to 2021. Now, you gave me this one in June of 2021. Unfortunately, I was just pouring through them last night after the show. I sat here for almost 2 hours just going through different encounters that were from old files, and I did get a bunch of them got erased, and I'm sick about that. It was my fault. I was half asleep, and I was not, you know, how you get so tired, you get sleepy, and you can't sleep, but you can't do anything productive either. It's not like being awake. You're like, oh, I'm going to get some stuff done. No, you're just too tired to do anything. So I was in that kind of state of mind, and I was definitely should have been asleep, but I was trying to get through some emails, and the email was backed up, and Anthony's been on my ass about not allowing that to happen again. He's like, dude, don't ever let this happen again. I'll let all these emails pile up. And so I did that. And so I was trying to go through there, and no offense to anybody, because sometimes you have to repeat your emails, but I saw a lot of repeats too. Like, it's like, people also that are telling me that they didn't get stuff from back in February, I could have swore a couple of those people that I did send it to you. We thought we did. So one of them I know for sure we did. And I went back and I looked, and I was like, so make sure that it wasn't something, or I got to make sure too, that it wasn't something that was sent to you that you didn't get, because that did happen to a couple people. One of them, even I had a picture from, not FedEx, what's called UPS, that showed that they actually delivered it to your doorstep. So somebody swiped it. So somebody is running around out there with a PRT shirt and a David Weatherly book. More power to them, sorry asses, but apparently they stole, and I am sorry that you didn't get it. And now it's up to you to be honest. If I send you more stuff, and come on, man, let's be honest. If you got it, let's just be honest, man. You're on the honor system here, and it costs us a lot of money to ship and do all these things, and it's not free. I mean, it is free. I mean, we're giving it to you, but you want to give away. If somebody stole your package, and I understand that, but there's a few people I know, like at least I'd say 3 or 4 that I know were delivered, that were sent out, and at least 2 of those I know were delivered, but they're saying they didn't get it. Now somebody that could be somebody that stole it, and I'm not going to call people out any names or anything like that. It's not important, but I mean, let's be honest, okay? Just be honest. I mean, if you wanted something else, something different or extra, hit me up. I'm a reasonable guy, and the next time I ship, I don't have a problem sending something to you. Delana says it's called tired but wired. Wolf, I get that. Insomnia, too nervous to sleep. It's truly a horrible feeling. Make sure you take care of you, Wolf. Yeah, I do, and I got a lot of people that depend on me, and I got to take care of. And so it can become very frustrating. I have a lot of people that aren't doing well right now, that are in my life, that I care about, that I'm close to. My business partner is battled pneumonia. He got through it, but now he's having a hard time breathing. So please pray for him. I will be right back. I'm going to let this chat fill up just a second. Give me 1 second. I got to go deal with something real quick. Don't go anywhere, folks. All right. Got a couple things going on. Saturday morning, getting ready for this weekend. Getting people in place. Saturday and Sunday. Well, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday are big nights or big days for us when it comes to our business that we run. Bonnie says she's going to be gardening. It's a different crowd here. I'm looking at different names. Some people I recognize. Josh, I see you. Love Cat. Wendy, Wedge. Make sure I'm reading this correctly. I hate having to put my glasses on, but I got to quit pretending sometimes. Soldier, is that how you say your name? He says, so anyone else fall asleep listening to the cryptid stories always makes for fun camping trips later on in the season. What do we got here? Yeah, please like and subscribe and be sure and share. Charles Centers, what's up, man? Leon Hogan. Miss Tessa Marie says, I haven't even fallen asleep yet. Jeez. Well, Delana, you have to cut her off if that's what's happening. I'm not telling you what to do with your family, but believe me, I know about toxic family. Since I quit communicating with my one sister and my dad, I'll be real honest, I feel a lot better. Like me personally, and I mean, they can say what they want to other people. I don't really care. Like they've said some things, and people, oh, he's a bad guy, whatever. All those people have to do is interact with me, like in my real life, in my day-to-day real life, and they'll know that that's not true. That is not, that I'm not the one that's whacked out. So, and that's pretty much that goes with everything, whether it's on the YouTube or the internet, whatever. If it's in your day-to-day life, those people will go and they will slander you and they will say all kinds of stuff about you. But anybody who really acts with you, interacts with you in any way, they'll see the truth. There were a lot of people that went to my conference, and really there was only one girl that was causing problems, her and her husband. Her husband, I don't really want to blame him because it was her actions and her attitude. And now she's over there in that other camp, like, yeah, it was horrible. The conference was horrible. We were mistreated. No, you got really intoxicated and you did a lot of things you shouldn't have done, and you harassed people. It was at an after party. It wasn't even the conference. And so I'm with Anthony on this one. Next time we have a conference, I'm not going to any after parties. I'm not going to any. They can party in all they want because I don't want it to be associated with PRT in any way, shape, or form. So it's unfortunate that if we do have a conference again someday, that we can't do that. We can't interact with people afterwards. It's just not going to happen because there was her and that situation where a bunch of people were complaining, including some of the speakers, that she was doing that stuff. And then there's I'm not even going to say her name. I'm not going to be rude and say it on the show. But then there was a person that went on to AI's channel and lied for Ike, and said a bunch of stuff that wasn't true because, she couldn't really say much because she didn't really have much to say. She just played it up what she did. Claimed that Bettina got possessed and all kinds of. This is the kind of stuff you deal with. These people, like when you stop and you look at these people, clearly there's some sort of like derangement or something. Like you can see that these people are not normal people, and this kind of stuff kind of breeds that, man. But then again, I've thought about it before, and I thought maybe these people are, it is something that happens. Turn my little Death Star lamp on here. A little too gloomy in here. And so I think about that and I wonder, I'm like, is it just us in this paranormal cryptid field? You know, are we a bunch of crazy people, or is it like that just across the board? And the answer is both. Like, it is like that across the board, but you get a bunch of people that are crazy in this field, and you have to kind of weed them out, because there's a fine line between, like what my colleague Garetano is always saying, is fiction and reality. And when it comes to this stuff, I'm telling you the truth. Like, the fiction bleeds into the reality, and I'm going to talk about something today that I think is important, that we all should be looking into. Are we collectively creating another level of consciousness? And what I mean by that is, like, every time I talk about a story or tell someone's encounters on the show, it never fails that I get several more encounters along that same vein. And people will come forward and say this. Now, when these people are having these encounters, it has nothing to do with me. Some of them come from halfway around the world. It's not like it's always a local thing that's happening. But you got to stop and wonder, like, is the fiction that we're being exposed to becoming reality? Or is the reality being turned into a fiction where it's kind of like it's more palatable to accept through people's different altered states of consciousness? Soldier says, yes, Josh, I do believe. Let me just post your comment on here. That's the good thing about StreamYard. Yeah. And Mystical Wonderland says, oh, yes, we are. I have a story about creating your reality. Well, tell me your story. And if there's anybody who wants to tell a story or whatever and talk about something this morning, I'm open to that. I'm okay with that. I mean, we can let me know if it's something. If you're on Facebook Messenger, that really helps, because then I can just call you through Messenger. Deepocalypse says, no, we can't be manifesting this reality. No Mandela effect, just lose of time. What? Not really understanding. Yeah. Baduina says, so if things come across your path more often, it is very plausible. And Honorata says, I believe fiction is influenced by reality. Or, yeah, it's the other way around. Reality is influenced by fiction. But, you know, Mr. Bullion, yes, I do stack silver. Yep, definitely. The good one, Wendy Eater, says that reality has many levels of manifestation. If you have a question, be sure and put it in all capital letters. I'm trying to let the chat fill up a little bit so we can talk about Justin's encounter. What happened to this guy? And this is interesting. He lived in Illinois, in a small town outside of Chicago. Well, I wouldn't say it's like right outside of Chicago, but it's, you know, it's a small town outside of Chicago. A lot of people know him in his towns. I'm not going to say the name of it. We'll just call him Justin, that's his name. But he had something interesting happen when his grandparents, they lived in a house that he believed was haunted. And his grandfather belonged to an organization. Here's what's weird. His grandfather was a Mason. He was a Freemason, but he also belonged to an order within the Masons that is supposedly does not exist. I have interviewed about a dozen Mason friends of mine. They're Masons. A couple of them are from Prince Hall, and then the rest, you know, there's Scottish Rite and whatever, and they do what they do. Like several of my friend Swole, we call him Swole. He's a Puerto Rican dude. He's a Mason, you know, and I've talked to all these different people. You know, they come from all walks of life, black, white, Hispanic. My one friend, Ori, he's Hawaiian, and they're all Masons. I'm not. I've been invited to be one on several occasions, and I've declined. Not my thing, man. Not my thing. But, you know, if you're a Mason and you're doing your thing and you're not hurting anybody, I mean, It is what it is. But there are a lot of rumors. And one of my friends is pretty high up in the Prince Hall, which I believe they've been excommunicated from the main Masons. I don't know the whole deal. And then there's the Shriners. I have a couple friends who are Shriners. Well, one of them, his dad is, and he's been big into helping them or whatever. And I think he's about to join them. He's about 10 years younger than me. So I've talked to all these different people, and they don't really know what this is. Now, two of them have heard rumors of this order that is an order within the Masons. And I'm not even going to say the name of it because I don't know if it's real, but it involves the word blood in it. And so one of the things that Justin told me was when he lived with his grandparents, he would see shadow people all the time moving around the house. They lived in a big house out on the edge of town, and he had a Dogman experience, which is originally he had reached out to me years ago. The first time he reached out to me was in 2018. And I was still dealing with that other show at that time. And so he wanted me to retell his encounter. It involved some of the woo-ish, so it didn't make the cut onto that other show. And that's unfortunate because it was a pretty good encounter. So we just kind of left it at that. And I said, look, man, I can't really tell that encounter on there. It's not my show, dude, And it was his call on what he wanted on there. So couldn't control it. So he did email me back in, I got to get a lozenge here, folks. If I can find one. My wife refilled this thing. But he did email me back in 2021. And unfortunately, it was in June. My mother passed away in May. And so I was not able to. Okay, well, this is Mission Impossible. All right, well, it looks like I'm stuck just with a ginger chew here. Don't a Mason write the Simpson scripts? It seems like it. Definitely seems like it. Sorry, I don't want to be smacking on camera, but I need something for my throat. Yeah, I agree with that, Love Cat. I wouldn't take an oath like that. It's Birdie says, any stories about cryptids involving the ocean, not mermaids? Yeah. But, when we've talked about some of the weird stuff in the ocean, yeah, there's a whole lot of weird stuff in the ocean, man. It's vast and incredible. So when he emailed me this information, he saw something that was, pretty incredible. And I'm not going to say that it involves transformation because I don't know if that's what it was. Because he didn't actually see a transformation. So in order for there to be some sort of werewolf involved, you would have to, have some sort of proof of a transformation, or at least be able to put something together like the guy's story from last night where Frank saw something, or I guess it would have been Thursday night. Yeah, you can't. I don't know. That was a freaky story that happened in Belize. What's up, BMR? Enjoying your time at the NFL draft? Your Lions traded with my Cowboys. Cowboys moved up or moved down in the draft and still got their guy. was interesting. It's funny. I just looked at my text, and Clark, one of the guys who works for us, is like, "Man, the draft is going on." So Tyler Guyton, that's the guy that the Cowboys got in the first round. I think he's good. He blocks really well, and he was instrumental in slowing down the Longhorns' pass rush. I thought that their line was a very good line, and they did well in slowing down UT's pass rush, which they're ranked in the top like 3 or 4 in the country in almost every category. That defensive line, big and fast, and Oklahoma handled them pretty well. Texas barely lost that game. Really should have won. It should have been undefeated going into that game with Washington. But I don't know if the Lions should have given up that extra third round pick, though. See, it's stuff like that puts the Lions back, it sets them back. And I don't know that they'll be able to win as many games this coming year, even if they have a better team. The point being is because no one is going to let them surprise them this year. Nobody's going to be surprised by Detroit. Everybody's going to know Detroit came real close to getting to the Super Bowl, real close, almost beating San Francisco. I thought they were going to beat them. I didn't think it going into the game, but as the game progressed, I thought, man, they could beat these dudes. But then San Fran, came out. I would have loved to see the Lions whip San Francisco and then go on and win the Super Bowl. That would have been amazing, but it didn't happen. The Apocalypse, I think they have, that Caleb Williams is going to be good, but, quarterback is a problem for them. It's going to be. But we're not here to talk football. We're here to talk about paranormal and cryptids. But, yeah, I could talk about football and baseball and basketball all day long. I could talk about all that stuff. I could talk about the stock market. I could talk about economy. I could talk about anything. You can talk about military history. I mean, you could, just whatever you want to talk about, I'm down. Some people make jokes and said I've downloaded some sort of computer. Yeah, and the NFC North did get better because the Packers are good. They're good, and they're going to challenge for the crown. And Vikings are still in there, and they're pretty tough too. And now the Bears will be a little bit better. I think everyone in the NFC North is a lot better than they were last year. My opinion too, Big Rob. Hopefully, though, the Lions will take it again. I'd like to see them. I would love to see the Lions win the Super Bowl. Who else would not love to see that? It's about time. I'd like to see them and the Browns, or the Texans. I think the Texans and the Lions would be a great Super Bowl. I would love to see that. It would be awesome. Anybody got anything they want to talk about else? Because I got this story and one other story, but this story is really interesting. So if you have something you want me to talk about, let me know, man. Sarah Jane 02, do you have a launch day for your first Rumble Live? Yeah, we're thinking of the second Saturday in May. So be prepared. So we're just going to keep talking about it as we get closer to it, and then we're going to launch it. We're going to go. Opie, let's talk about your extended car warranty. No, let's not. I got a call about the other day. The guy was like, "Excuse me, sir. My name is Bob, and I'd like to talk to you about your car's extended warranty." And I'm like, "No, I don't want to talk about that. Thank you, Bob from Bombay. I'll see you." So he said his name was Bobby. I was like, "Yeah." But they always have like Neil and Bobby and like whatever, dude. So what ended up happening with Justin, it was a weird thing. Like he lived with his grandparents, his mother and his father. It was kind of sad, but he had a good upbringing from his grandpa and grandma. Only problem was they passed away and he was still in his 30s. And so he didn't get to have that. He had virtually no relationship with his mother other than, her giving birth to him and her popping in every once in a while to try to take money from his grandparents, basically stealing money, as he said it. She would just come in and be like, "I need money." And they're like, "Okay, get a job. Stop doing drugs and freeloading." So there was that kind of the relationship. His dad, he met his dad one time when he was like 21, and his dad got him drunk and then hit him up for money. So he never really knew his dad, and his mother was just a junkie. I mean, I'm not trying to be ugly or crass, but that's what she was. And so he's like, I was raised by my mother's parents. And he did meet his grandmother and what would be his step grandfather on his dad's side when he was like 19, and he developed a really good relationship with them, which he says he still has to this day, and they're close. And he even stayed with them temporarily when he got out of the military for about 3 months, and he said they're nice, they're good people. His dad is not the same kind of person as his mother. He's just, in his words, a borderline, if not full-on sociopath, does not care about people, does not care about anybody. He did establish a relationship with his uncle and his cousins on that side, so he's got family. That's good, and I'm glad for you, Justin. That's important. And he has a healthy relationship with his wife and his 2 children. So, it sucks when you don't have a mother like that. It kind of puts you in a, but he said he wasn't a very trusting person. And one of the people that would come around his house, his family, with his grandfather and his grandmother, was this guy that he thought was a very sneaky individual and was always trying to get his grandfather into these schemes and trying to get him to invest in things, which he thought was a little suspect. And even as a child, he didn't trust this guy. And one time, there was a big storage building behind their house, and they had a pretty big house. It was a 5-bedroom, big old house, Victorian style. And he said that he went into the storage building one day to help his grandfather. I just literally poked myself in the eye. Okay. Hang on, folks. I'm back. I was sitting there and I literally went to and just poked, whatever. Wow, that sucks. So what ended up happening, he went to the back of the storage building, and he was supposed to be grabbing, like, I don't know, something for the garden or a tool or something. He couldn't tell me what it was. He didn't remember. Yeah, be careful, Wolf. Thank you for that advice. Love cat. I will. So what happened was he goes back there into the storage building, and he's looking for something. He said, I can't remember what it was. He goes, I was a kid. I was like 9, 10 years old. He's like, and it was one summer. And he goes, and it was hot and humid. Because I just remember my grandpa, and I was kind of ticked off because I wanted to go play with my friends and do stuff. And I had Little League practice later that day. He goes, and I didn't feel like even going because I was so tired from the yard work. But my grandfather was getting up there in years, so I had to help him. And she's like, I'm over there muttering to myself. He goes, and I go into the back of this storage. He's like, and I open the storage, and as I walk in, he goes, I see movement in the corner of my eye. And he's like, and then I hear something rustling around. And he was like, and I'm like, the guy's name, I mean, it doesn't matter. His name was Simon, but he was just aggravated. He was like, what in the hell? Why is this guy in my grandfather's store in the middle of the day? It was like, 1, 2 in the afternoon. And he sees him there. Now get this. This is really freaky. And he's like, hey, what are you doing? And he said, the guy turned around like he was surprised, but no sooner had he said that the guy just vanished like a ghost. And he told me this, and he says, the guy just poof, like he was gone. And I thought, wow, that's weird. And of course, the obvious question is, was the guy alive? Was he dead? Did you see his ghost? No. No. He's like, later that evening, my grandfather was on the phone. He goes, I didn't tell my grandfather what had happened. I was really tired. I went upstairs afterwards, took a shower and took a nap. I got up, went to Little League practice. I came home, went back to sleep, and I woke up that evening, about 9 o'clock. My grandfather was on the phone with this man. And so I asked my grandfather, and he goes, I wasn't a nosy child. He's like, I wouldn't even say I was really precocious. I was just, he goes, I just asked the question. Because I asked him if he was, just like a child that, was like, are you one of those kids that was like, hey, what's going on? Always asking questions, wanting to know what's going on. That was me. I was the nosy, precocious kid, whatever. And he was like, no, he goes, no, I wasn't like that, He said, I asked my grandfather, like, who is that? And my grandfather was like, kind of confused that he would even be bothering to ask his business. He goes, well, that was Simon, if you must know. And he goes, I'll be eating lunch with him tomorrow. We have something that we need to talk about. And so he goes, okay. So I didn't see a ghost. And even as a child, he was like well aware that it was very odd that he would walk back into a storage building and see a man standing there like he was digging through things and then just vanish. So his grandfather always kept the storage locked. So he started paying attention, and he never had bothered to ask, and he had no reason to go back there or dig through anything. He said in one side of the storage was just like some gardening tools and things like that, which is where that wall, that's what it was for. And then he had another building. It was an outbuilding that his grandfather would go back there and work on projects and stuff. And he said that he went back there a couple times, and there was nothing there, just a bunch of tools. But on the other side of that storage, there were things that were covered over with a tarp. And so he went and he pulled the tarp away one day while his grandfather was gone. His grandmother had this cross stitch group that she would go to. So he was there by himself every now and then. And he said, I started snooping around and I did some digging. And I found a book. He's like, on the cover of the book, there was like this blue jewel. He said it was really pretty. It just kind of puffed up. You could put your hand and you could feel it like a jewel, like it was embedded into it. Like a sapphire that was cut in half, stuck onto the book. And he's like, I thought it was really pretty. I thought it was cute, it was just really neat, He said, I thought it was cool. I opened the book and I couldn't read any of the words. It was written in some weird writing, like some kind of language. I couldn't figure it out. And then he said that, so he took the book up to his room. And then he took it to a local antique dealer that lived in his town when he went to go visit his friend one weekend whose parents were into antiques. And his dad was very interested in it. And he said, where did you get that book? And he says, it's my grandfather's. It was in his storage or whatever. And his friend was his dad's friend was very interested in this book and said, I don't think you should have that book. I don't think your grandfather gave you permission. And so later that day, his grandfather showed up at his friend's house, and he wanted to, like I said, he wanted to take it to an antique dealer or whatever, because they were going to this market, and there was a guy there that sold antiques. And so he thought maybe he could have them look at it. And he goes, I was a kid. I didn't know any better. He said at that point, I think I was like, going on 12 years old. And he said, I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, my kid brain, I'm going to see what it's worth, and maybe somebody could translate it for me. When his grandfather showed up to pick him up, he got a spanking. He said 2 times in my life, my grandfather spanked me. That was one of them. We got home and my grandfather spanked the crap out of me. He told me, don't ever go into that storage and don't ever mess with anything in there. And he gave me a warning. He said, it's not even about me. It's for your own good. You should never, ever mess with anything underneath that tarp. Promise me you'll never do it again. He said, I looked at him. I didn't want to answer him. I just sat there biting my bottom lip, looking at him like I wanted to punch him. And he says, gets in my face and he shakes me by my arms. He says, promise me you will never go into that storage again and mess with anything under that tarp. And he says, I promise. And he's like, and my grandfather walked out. He said, but I lied. He said, I totally lied, Wolf. He's like, The very next day, I was out there trying to open the lock, and it was locked. I couldn't do it. My grandfather had changed it. He put a combination on it, and only he knew the combination. He goes, so months go by, and he sees the shadow going out of the back of this storage. He sees it like it's nighttime, and him and his friends are playing kickball. He goes, we had a huge backyard, and it had a chain link fence around it, and it was a giant backyard. And so the neighborhood kids would come over and we'd play. He goes, and 3 of us are standing there, me and my 2 friends. There was about 6 of us playing. He's like, and we see this shadow man being come out of that storage and then just start to walk and fade away in broad daylight. He said, I couldn't believe it. And he's like, I knew there was something wrong with that, whatever was going on. And he goes, and instinctively in my head, I knew that shadow was this man, Simon. I knew it was him. And for some reason, he kept going into that storage. And he's like, and I don't know how he was doing it or what he was doing. But he was like a ghost, like a spirit. And he says, and I couldn't wrap my mind around what the hell, my kid brain had all kinds of ideas. And so I started talking to my friend Eddie, the one whose dad had turned me in for the whatever. Well, it turns out Eddie's dad was a part of this order with his grandfather. And one day, his dad told Eddie, hey, invite some friends, go fishing. They all went fishing. They were out at this glorified pond, as he said. It was supposed to be a lake. It was like a pond. We were out there fishing, and my friend's dad comes up to me, and he's always really nice to me. He's going to never forget. He was drinking a beer, and he's like, and he's standing there looking at me, and he'd had a few, and he said, let me tell you something. He said, you need to be real careful getting into your grandfather's business. He's like, your grandfather is a very important person, and he's important to a lot of people. He goes, but there's people out there that if you had knowledge, they would take you for that knowledge. Do you know what I'm telling you? And he was like, kinda. He's like, I'm like 12 years old. He's telling me this. And he says, I'm not really following or understanding what this man is saying. He goes, because I'm not real sure what he's getting at. He's been drinking. He said, then later on, as we're driving back to my friends to unload the tackle and all that, the fishing equipment, he tells him again, he says, I just want you to know that you need to be very careful. The less you know, the better. And so he was like, okay, I think I get it. So he said for about 2 years, he just put it out of his mind. He goes, I never thought about it. I was like 14. I was going through, looking, getting into girls and putting away childish things, and just being, becoming a teenager, looking into getting into sports and just doing, whatever. Playing high school ball. He was like, I was freshman basketball, and so he lettered in a couple different sports, and he just kind of put it out of his mind. But then one day there was a dinner that he had to go to. And he was aggravated. It was a Friday night, and he was like, I don't want to go to this crap with these older people. What is this crap? And so he goes to this dinner, and there's a few of his friends there, so they all kind of got together in the kids' room. Well, it was a sitting room, and they were playing board games and stuff. And he said that the board games got a little more serious. One of the girls there says, hey, let's play with a Ouija board. And so he's like, okay. He goes, I'd never played with one or what. I'd never even seen one. So she busts out this Ouija board. And they start moving the planchette around, whatever. And it's like asking, the thing literally was like, what do you want? And everybody looks around like, whoa, this thing's moving by itself. Oh, it's creepy, right? And so he says, his friend said, I want to know what my parents do at the hall. Now, there was a place they called the Blue Hall that they would go to. There was a building. It was blue. And apparently, this was the meeting spot for this secret society that basically the bulk of this town town the older people were involved in. And it was mostly, which would be considered like the boomers, that generation, whatever, you know. Yeah, so he said that there was a lot of people that would go there, but it was mostly men, but there were a few women. Then the women were only allowed to go into the very front of it or something, and they would help feed. They would like make meals and stuff like that. And the men would go to the back of the hall to have their secret meetings or whatever the hell you want to call it. And so he said when they started talking to the Ouija board, get this. He goes, I don't know why, but out of the back of the recesses of my brain, I just blurted something out. And these other kids, they agreed that this one guy, Simon, was a creepy, weird dude. He was a creepy old guy. And everybody thought he was just bizarre. He was like a weird guy. He had a son that was born out of wedlock that lived in another town, and that's all they knew. He was never married. He had a series of relationships, and he had had some affairs with women that were. And there was a scandal behind him too, of getting with other people's wives. And so, amazingly, he's like, as good as my grandfather was, as good of a man as he was, he had his secrets. He's like, and I knew that this guy was not a good guy. I told my grandfather that. He's like, I didn't like him. I didn't trust him. I didn't like when he came around. I thought he was sneaky. And he said that at many times his grandfather had told him, oh, you're overreacting. He's got his flaws, but he's a decent guy, blah, 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 blah. He goes, I never told my dad that I saw him one day disappear, vanish right before my eyes. He's like, and then over time, I just kind of played it off. And you know how it goes with stuff like that. He goes, I just came to the conclusion that I was seeing things. I'm just like, he goes, I am not. It was the heat, I'm not, wasn't in my right mind. And he goes, and then he got to where I was telling myself, I'm not certain that that's even what I saw. Maybe that's just he's like, looking back on it now. And I asked the question, I said, do you believe it was now? He said, absolutely. And he's like, I'll tell you why. He's like, because the more I got to know about this man, the more I realized that I wasn't the only one that, whose radar he was on. One of the girls there couldn't stand him because he had had an affair with her mother. And then her dad left and never came back. So he says, I don't know why. I just blurted it out. I was like, who is Simon? And he's like, and I don't even know why I said it that way. I don't know why I worded it that way. It just came out. He was like, I asked the question, who is Simon? And the planchette moved around on the board. And it said one word, bad. He goes, at that point, I was like really, really concerned. He was like, I was like, oh. He goes, and there's like several kids around, and we're all like quiet. We're looking around. Some of the kids were just kind of standing with their arms crossed, looking down. And they were all like, oh, whoa. They all knew who he was. Even the ones that didn't really know him that well, they knew who he was. And then they all started talking about him to the point where they just kind of forgot about the board for a minute and were just discussing him and all the weird, creepy stuff that he had done. One of the kids, his friend, I think he said his name was like Carl or something like that. Carl was one of his best friends, him and Eddie. And he said that his dad caught him digging in their trash one day, like on the side of their house. And they were like, why is this guy so damn weird? What is wrong with this man? Always in people's business. Always lurking around. Kind of uninvited, but just always at the party kind of guy. And then one of the things that came to light about this guy was that he was married years ago. And supposedly his wife just one day up and left, moved to Chicago, never came back, and nobody ever questioned it. Of course, this was back in the late 60s. And when he was a young man. But then the rumors started to fly that maybe Simon did something to this young woman. Because of his philandering, maybe she was Not happy, upset with him. Ooh, that sounds creepy. Navia's Angel says, yikes, I've messed with a Ouija board one night with friends. Not a good experience at all. We would speak to a certain entity. He said he was in hell for murdering his family. Ooh, that's harsh. And if you murder your family, that's where you deserve to be. But still, so they're playing with this Ouija board, and they get back to it. He's like, and at this point, he goes, I'm kind of taking over, and the other kids are watching because of my weird, blurted out question. He's like, and I said it again. I said, what is Simon? He's like, and I don't know where these were coming from. I'm like, why am I even asking these dumb, weird questions? He's like, it's not even imaginative at all. I'm just like saying things, It's like whatever pops into my head. And after the first question was, who is Simon? It says bad. The next question I asked, and get this, when he said, what is Simon? It spelled out demon. And then he was like, wow. So they all got freaked out, got freaked out, stopped messing with it. And they all looked at each other. And then he goes, we all just collectively ran out of the room. He goes, and get this. He's like, as we're running out of the room, we turn the corner. There he is. He's standing right there. He's a very tall man. He's about 6'4", 6'5", very tall, lanky. He had these really long, skinny arms, these weird-looking wrists. There's just something weird about him. He goes, he always smelled weird, too, like formaldehyde or something, He said, I worked very briefly in a mortuary. He goes, it was the worst job I ever had. And he goes, and I couldn't stand more than 3 or 4 days of it. He was there for a week. He goes, but I called in every other day. Finally, the owner was like, you're just not cut out for this. He's like, no, I'm not. He's like, and the smell of formaldehyde, I'll never forget it. He goes, and this man, he smelled like the mortuary. He was gross. And in fact, he was friends with the guy who ran the mortuary. He was one of his buddies. And he showed up there a couple times when I was working there. He said, this guy was so creepy. He said, I had dreams about him. He goes, and I thought at the time, I'm 14, 15 years old. It started when I was like 9. And every now and then I'd be dreaming that there was somebody in the backyard digging. And I would wake up in the dream, but it was still a dream. And I would go to the window and I would see this man digging like a grave. And he'd look up at me, and it was him. This creepy old bastard, as he called him. And everybody's friend, always pretending like he was there to help, always showing up at the functions, bringing food. He goes, which I thought, I'm not eating anything this dude brings. He doesn't live with the woman, so he's the one cooking, obviously. He's like, and I don't want anything to do with this guy. But he went around making friends with everybody. And supposedly he had dirt on everyone too. That was his little thing. He was always in everybody's business. Now, there's people like this. Believe me, they're in this community. They're everywhere. There's people like this in my day-to-day life. One of the guys I used to work with in security was just like that, dude. Just the same way. Always in everybody's business and always having something to say about somebody. And if you talk to them, all they want to do is gossip about somebody. That's it. They don't call you for any other reason but to gossip and say something about what so-and-so did and blah, blah, blah. Sounds familiar. Which is one of the reasons why this story stuck with me so much. So he said, he's like, I was laying there in bed one day. He's like, and I'm like, I had just woken up, and it was, oddly enough, a Saturday morning. He's like, and I look over, he goes, and I remember I was like maybe 10, 11 years old at that time. And I see the backside of this man walking out of my room. Now, the house we lived in was haunted. It had its own weird energy and spirits and stuff. They weren't connected to all this. They were just there. He said, me, being an only child, and sometimes I had to share the house with my cousins. He goes, and I'm not going to lie. My grandparents doted on them because they had to see me every day. You know, he goes, they didn't get to see my cousins very often. So when they came, even though I know I was their favorite, I was like their son, you know, they would give them special privileges and whatever. And he had a little cousin that would come in there and just aggravate the crap out of him, mess with his stuff and turn everything upside down. He's like, me and him are like best friends now. He's like, but at the time he was really annoying. He was an annoying kid. And he said, my grandparents are always like, oh, be nice to him. You know, he's only here for a little while. And he hated it in the summertime when they would come and stay for like a week, 2 weekends, whatever. It would just never end. And he said that one day his little cousin came into his room, aggravated him while him and his friend were playing video games. And he was crying. And it was night, you know, and he says, I can't sleep. He says, why? He says, the tall man keeps messing with my stuff. And he's like, his friend goes into the room. He goes, I'll help him. Because he just kind of rolled his eyes. And he goes, I had the phone to my, you know, and I was talking to a girl from across town. And so I'm like, okay. And so my friend went and talked, you know, helped him, my friend Eddie. And he said, I hear this screaming. And my grandparents come running up the stairs. And I said, hold on. And I got the phone with this girl that I was talking to. And he says, I run in there and Eddie is just white, pale, just, you know. He said, literally, he looked pale, like white. He goes, all summer we had been playing and swimming and stuff, and we were very tan from just being outside all the time. He goes, and it was like there was no blood in his face. He's like, and my little cousin, BB, we called him, was crying, tears pouring down his eyes. And they said there was a tall man on all fours, and he was digging through things, you know, and the room was tossed about. And they said that this man's lower body looked like a dog, like a wolf. And he had this elongated limbs, and his head was weird. And when his grandparents asked him, you know, like they questioned the child, he was like 6 or 7. He said, I don't know. I think I've seen him before. And Eddie knew. Eddie didn't say a word. And when they went back to his room, he says, dude, it was that guy. He said, what guy? He goes, Simon, that weird guy. The one that goes to the Blue Hall. Who's always around. So that was another thing that had happened. It just keep happening, these weird things. I think at that time he said he was like 12 or something like that. But his little cousin was like 6 or 7. He was little. And so he was scared. He slept in the room with him. He said, in that night, we heard the door open and close, and we all woke up because the door slammed. He goes, and me and my friend got up about 3 a.m. And we went down the hallway and we looked. He's like, we went to my grandparents' room and they were asleep. He goes, and then my cousin, she was asleep. And my older cousin who was there, he was asleep. He was really aloof. He always kind of hung to himself. He had a lot of emotional, mental problems. And ultimately that older cousin ended up taking his own life, unfortunately. But he said that he was abused really bad by his stepdad. So he had a lot of issues. The youngest child was was that kid's stepdad's real father. So being a stepdad, like some people are step-parents, they're really evil, and that step-parent was really mean and cruel to him. And so whatever he had done to that boy, eventually it caught up to him when he was 18. He was very quiet and withdrawn, physically abused, very bad. Beyond that, he doesn't really know a lot. He just knows that he took his own life when he was 18. So what ended up happening, he said one day, we were outside on the back porch. We had this big wraparound porch, and it was like really nice in the back. He's like, it had like a screen on it. You know, we're all back there, we're talking. And my grandpa and grandma were always so cool. They would make homemade ice cream on the weekends. Kids would come over, and we had a TV back then. We were watching baseball. And he goes, my grandfather was a lifelong Cubs fan. He's like, and we're sitting there and we're watching TV and we're just having a good time talking. My grandpa's telling stories. He's like, and here comes Simon around the corner. Sucked all the energy right out of everybody. He's like, always with his super duper nice personality, trying to act like he's everybody's friend. Hey guys, what's up? And like, everybody's like, hey, what's up, dude? My grandfather was always nice to him. Always nice to him. He's like, I knew in my heart that this man was a villain and he was looking for something. Because why did he keep appearing at my grandparents' house and not even in human form? He said it was a weird thing. When he got wind from Eddie's dad that I had this book with the blue stone on it, he pulled me to the side one day. He just yanked me by my arm when everybody was kind of out of range. He's like, and I was at baseball practice. And he was, of course, volunteering to be one of the coaches. He says, hey, you want to tell me about that book you found? What did it look like? And he looked up at him. And he told him, he's like, I don't remember. Well, that wasn't a good enough answer for this man. This man was like determined. And he was like, I think you do. I think you're lying. He's like, and I could see two of the coaches walking up. And he goes, and I just sat there waiting for them to get closer. He goes, and then as they got closer, he just patted me on the head and said, okay, well, we'll talk about that later on. He goes, you're doing really good, man, learning how to hit both ways, man, and all this crap, because I was learning how to hit, from the left. My dad was a switch hitter and played college baseball. And he goes, and my grandpa was trying to teach me how to swing from the left, like Mickey Mantle. He's like, my grandfather wanted me to learn everything about baseball. He was a baseball player himself. He said, unfortunately, I got a scholarship to go to a small college. My grades weren't real good. He's like, but I tore my knee sliding into second base. And that was the end of that. He told me, too, he's like, I was pretty good. He goes, I think I could have done something with it, Had a few offers to go to bigger schools and do more. He's like, so this guy played it off like everything was just hunky-dory. But he knew there was something wrong with this man. And not just with this man, but the scenario now asking about this book. He's like, I looked at the book one time when my grandfather changed the locks. Yeah, Scotty, I played second base for a while too, but then I was tall and I wasn't heavy. I was tall and lanky, but pretty muscular, but not heavy muscular. And I ended up going to center field because of my speed. I could run really fast. And for my size, I ran a 4.6 40, which is not bad. I was a big dude, man, but I was quick and I was fast, very fast. So, so I played center field for a long time. And then I played every position. I even pitched, relief. But center field was where I did my best work because I was so quick. And I had a good arm, too. So sometimes I play right field, sometimes I play left field, but I played everywhere. But second base was fun, man. And I could turn that double play. I love playing second base. I played second base all season for a team called the Bankers one year, which was my favorite year. We won the title that year. And boy, my batting average was like 380 or something like that. Against some pretty good pitching too. But yeah, it was crazy because so this guy pulls him to the side, almost threatening. He's like, but he didn't come out and right out threaten me. He just was kind of like, yeah, what did you see? Asking him about this book. Eventually, he goes, we ended up at this ice cream social where everybody was getting together, whatever. And of course, old douchebag was there. And he goes, he kept staring over at me and my friends. We're at the kids' table, we're eating and everybody's having a good time. And of course, he goes and throws his bowl away, a little plastic spoon and the paper bowl, whatever. And he makes his way over to us and he's like, "Hey, kids, what's going on?" Trying to be everybody's friend. He's like, and my two friends got up to leave. And he goes, and I don't know what possessed me to just sit there. He goes, I should have got my ass up and moved. And then the guy goes and sits down next to me and blocks me in. So I'm all alone with this dude again. He goes, at this point, I was like 13. And he starts asking me weird questions, like things that you shouldn't even be asking a kid. Things that are none of his damn business. And it was like he excelled at making me feel uncomfortable, making me feel like something was wrong, like I'm a bad person or something. And I said, "What do you mean?" And he says, "Well," he starts talking to me and he says, "At your age, your hormones, you're going through all kinds of changes and things like that." He goes, "You better not be thinking bad thoughts." He's like, because if you're thinking about girls all the time, you can't be thinking about God. And he's over there like, what the hell is this guy talking about? He's like, and you got to stay out of people's business, He's like saying things about people, things that ain't true. And he's like, starts talking about an incident that happened that he had I didn't remember all what it was. He goes, I was in such a panic to get away from him. His mouth was moving. He goes, and I couldn't even tell you what the hell he was freaking saying. All I was doing was screaming inside, thinking, I want to get the hell away from this man as fast as possible. He goes, and then he grabs my shoulder and he squeezes into my shoulder until I start to register pain. And I'm like, ow. Ow. And he's like, "Sir," and he said his last name. I'm not going to say the man's last name, but he says, "Mr. Douchebag, can you please not do that? You're hurting me." He goes, "Oh, that hurts?" He's like, "Yeah. Well, it hurts when people go around making up rumors about people." He goes, and then the story that he started to kind of repeat, because he liked to repeat himself because he was that kind of guy. He's like, wasn't even something that I had said. It was something that another kid had said about this douchebag. And he said, "Okay, well, I'm not the one that said that. But maybe you should go and harass." He goes, and I did. I said this to the guy. "You should go and harass the guy that said that because it wasn't me." And he goes, "Really? Well, do you know who said that?" He's like, "Because that's a very hurtful rumor." He's like, "See, I live in this town and I want people to like me. And when you and your friends say things about me, well, people don't like me." He's like, "And I need people to like me and trust me because I'm a good person." He's like, at that moment, he goes, I felt nothing but anger and hatred from this guy. He goes, and I'm not an empath. I asked him that. And he said, "Do you think you're an empath?" You could feel. He goes, "No, it was just so palpable." Justin's a very intelligent guy. He's very, he got a good feel for who this person was. And he says, "Dude, I was like totally terrified of this man." He said, then when he gets up out of his chair, he yanks the chair out. And he's like, you could just grow into a strong young man, get married and have children, live your life. Or you could just keep messing with people and you never know what might happen. He's like, and at that point, he was threatening me. He says, people that go around saying bad things, God punishes them. And they get sick or they have accidents. People like you that don't mind their business. He's like, and at that point, I was so sickened by this guy and so scared. The words, once again, they just flew out of my mouth. He goes, I'm not that kind of person that just blurts things out. And I wasn't as a kid either. He's like, but then I told him, I said, you're the one in everybody's business, Simon, not me. He goes, and at that point, I had tears coming down my eyes. And he goes, luckily, one of the women that were there at the church social, she goes over there and she sees Simon got me pinned down and I'm like crying. And she walks up and her name, he's like, was Betty. And everybody knew Miss Betty. She's an African-American lady. And she walked up there and she's like, is everything okay? And he's like, and Simon just looks over at her and he goes, and when he does, he's like, I looked and in his right eye, I saw this flip, this weird sort of cat eye, reptilian eyed looking thing happen. Then he looks back at me and he says in this deep guttural voice, everything's fine. And I couldn't do it justice. And then he goes, well, I'll see you. And then he walks off. And she goes around, Miss Betty Lou, they called her. She's like, child, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. And she's like, looks at him and she's like, what did that man tell you? Why are you crying? And she goes and gets her husband's handkerchief. He comes over. And he's like, I always liked them. They were really nice. Her husband, he goes, he didn't look anything like him, but his voice, he goes, he reminded me of Morgan Freeman. And he's like, did that man bother you? Do we need to have a talk about it? Because I'll never forget. He's like, and I was like, no, please, no. We don't want to talk about it. He's like, and I got up. He goes, and her husband puts his hand on my back. His name is Marcus. Miss Betty and Marcus took me over to my grandparents. Of course, my grandfather, he goes, he was very prominent in the town, and everybody was like around him, you know. And he goes, and they took me over to my grandpa, and they kind of had a talk with him. He goes, and my grandfather had a concerned look on his face, and he was kind of looking down. He looked over at me, and he was listening. He shook his head. So we get home. And he goes to me, and he says, hey, I want to talk to you. He goes, we're in the den. He's like, what's going on between you and Mr. So-and-so, you know? He says, I told him everything. At that point in time, I said, look, this man has been harassing me since I was a kid. And he goes, and I've told you a couple things, but you don't really seem to be, you know, he basically told his grandfather, you're not paying attention. And he goes, and it had been years since I'd seen him in that shed. And he goes, and I almost told him that, but then I didn't. He goes, but what I did do on my 15th birthday, which was only a couple months removed from that incident, he's like, me and my friend Eddie and my friend Carl, I think he said his name was Carl, we broke into that shed. My grandparents were planning a party, surprise party, but he goes, I found out about it. And so we were all supposed to meet at this town hall, this place we would go meet at. He's like, and I told him I had a stomach ache and I wasn't feeling too good. And he goes, oh, it's your birthday. And he's like, well, I'll catch up. I'll ride my bike over there. So his grandparents said, okay. So they were supposed to have a get together, which was pretty obvious that it was his birthday. And he's like, after the get together, we'll celebrate your birthday. So apparently he was supposed to show up, and then everybody's like, surprise, it's for you, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, it was pretty obvious. So he said, me and my friends, we go and we break in. My one friend was already driving. And he was grounded, though, from his car. So he had to walk. He said, so me and my other friend, we started. And we broke into that shed, but we mangled it so bad. We ended up tearing all the, you know, it was pretty obvious. He goes, at this point, I'm already going to be in trouble. Maybe soften the blow because it's my birthday. I don't know. He's like, but I was just determined. He goes, so I go in there and I throw the blue tarp open. And I grab several books that were there. We just piled them up. And my friend was supposed to bring his car, but he didn't. He shows up walking. He's all like, hey, man, sorry, man, you know, blah, 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 whatever. Yeah. He goes, it was hot and summertime, whatever. And he tells him, he's like, well, I got all these books now, and we're supposed to put them in your car. He goes, well, my car has been taken away. I'm grounded from it, you know, whatever. And he's like, that's great. So he has nowhere to take them. So his friend Eddie, they lived, you know, a few blocks down the road. So what they did was they just all got on their bikes, except for his one friend who didn't have a bike. He walked. And he had to either use the girl bike, which he wasn't going to be able to carry anything on, or just walk. So he just carried some of the books and they walked. And they took him to Eddie's house and they put him in the back in the storage in behind his house. And he went back and covered the tarp, whatever, tried to bend the metal back. He goes, I tried to bend it back as best I could. He's like, and I had to get another lock because we had broken the shit out of this one. We used bolt cutters and a crowbar, and we finally got it off, you know. He's like, they make it look so much easier on TV. I was laughing. I was like, yeah, believe me. I've seen people do some really messed up things doing security. So they go to his friends, and he's like, after this surprise party. So his friends went on ahead, and they showed up. And he's like, I went back, and I got washed up or whatever and tried to make myself look presentable. And then I rode my bike over there, like I said. I show up, and everybody's like, surprise, you know, whatever. And, you know, this is your party. It's not a dinner that we're going to, and then we're going to have a party. No, this is the party, whatever. He's like, and so I acted surprised, like, oh my gosh, I'm so surprised. He's like, I got several cool gifts. He's like, and the whole time, he's like, I'm feeling guilty because I just broke into my grandfather's storage shit. He goes, but part of me was screaming, I have to do this because I have to figure out what's going on. Why is my grandfather so secretive? And why does this weird ass dude want what's in that shed? And why has he appeared like a ghost multiple times in and around our property? Why did I have these dreams of him, which I told him they probably weren't really dreams. They were you out of your body and you were witnessing something through space and time, which happens. People don't understand that. That's the nature of reality that we don't understand, or people don't understand. So what ended up happening? Simon shows up. He specifically told his grandfather he wanted nothing to do with this man. And so when he shows up, he's like, my attitude, my whole whatever just kind of dropped because here's this guy showing up again, like always, just around, buzzing around. He's like, and my grandfather went up to him and had a talk with him. And then I see him shake his head. He drops the gift on the table. He gives me this dirty, sour look. And then he walks out. I was glad because I was relieved. He's like, all of the gifts I opened up except for Simon's. He goes, and then we get everything, we loaded up, and I went to leave, and my grandfather was like, oh, you forgot a gift. It's right here on the table. And he's like, yeah, I know. So his grandmother grabs it and says, come on, it's your birthday, whatever. They go back. He said, and we did a pretty good job of fixing the metal and putting another lock on there. The only problem was I didn't know the code to my grandfather's old lock. But he didn't go back there very often. And he was getting up there in years, and he goes, and my uncle would come over and would do the yard work. He goes, and so my uncle knew the code. He goes, so when my uncle came over, a couple of weeks go by, and nobody was noticing anything. He's like, and then he says, my uncle's struggling with the lock, and I walked out there and I told him, I said, look, I did something. He goes, I broke into this. And his uncle was like, why? He said, well, I needed a tool, and Grandpa had it locked up. So, he made up a lie. And his uncle was like, oh, and he goes, and so I broke into it, and there's another lock on there. Here's the combination. And he's like, looked at me. He's like, my uncle looked back at the house, kind of looked around, rolled his eyes, and then said, okay, I'll take care of it. So he goes and he tells his dad, he's like, yeah, I redid the combination. I changed it. And he gave him the new combination. He goes, and my grandfather didn't think anything of it. He was just like, oh, okay. But at that point, he goes, my grandfather was getting a little older, not remembering things as well. And he goes, but my grandfather lived another like 17 years, but he was just slowing down. And as he did, he took it easy. He's like, and I did everything I could to make his life as comfortable as possible. He was like, this man was my dad and my grandfather all rolled into one. My role model, my everything. My grandmother couldn't have been a nicer, sweeter person if she tried. She was just the nicest person ever. He's like, I went to my Mimo. He calls her Mimo. He goes, I went to Mimo and I told her, I said, I want to talk to you about something. And he asked her the question. He's like, have you ever seen what was in the storage underneath the blue tarp? Because at this point, him and his friends had poured through those books. And they swore each other to secrecy. We were like, we're not going to talk about it to anyone until the time is right. Yes, we're live. This is actually happening right now. We're live. And he says, as we talked, I told my grandmother what I had seen in those books. She said, no, I respected my husband's privacy. I never did. And he goes, I told her everything right there that day while my grandfather was at the hall. I said, do you know that some of these people that grandpa is dealing with, that they practice sorcery? They do things. They travel out of their body. They remote view things. What they call like this, the absence, basically. When they leave their body, they do all these weird things. And she says, no. She's like, that's not true. She's like, he's a Mason. He doesn't do those things. And he's like, no. On the surface, that's what they are. He's like, but he belongs to a thing called the Blue Blood Order. He's like, do you know why that's why it's called that? She's like, no. He said, at that point, I knew my grandmother knew way more than she was letting on, but I didn't want to stress her out. She was starting to hyperventilate almost. And he says, I'm going to tell you something. Simon is not a good person. In fact, she's like, he's evil, wholly evil, completely evil. He's like, there's nothing good about that man. Basically, what he found out was this guy and his grandfather were in Korea together. Saved his grandfather's life and held it over his head for the rest of his life. Introduced him to this order that he got involved in. And they did something really bad together. This man did something to somebody, I'm not even going to get into it, and his grandfather helped cover it up. Why? He's like, I don't know. He had something on my grandfather. He goes, I hate to admit it, but I think my grandfather had cheated on my grandmother. And I think this man used every bit of leverage he had on everybody in the community. He's like, and not only that, he goes, but something happened when they were overseas. And in some of the notes that were, he read them. And everybody was basically having to do what this insidious individual wanted. And from some of the people, some of the notes that have been written down in these books, some of the words about this man, it was like a diary of sorts of his crimes, of the things that he had done, and how they had conspired to try to remove this guy from the community, but there was nothing they could do. He had too much power. His power lied in the information that he had on everybody, and he tried to wield it which he did. So they just tried to tiptoe around the guy. One guy even said that he was sick and tired of it. He was going to deal with him, and that man disappeared. And everybody said, oh, he left town, moved to Chicago. Everybody was moving to Chicago. He's like, but I knew in my heart this man did something to him. He goes, and then he's like, there was a picture of this man standing in front of what looked like a pyramid, a black pyramid, wearing a black robe. And in one picture, he had this, what he thought was a mask that looked like a wolf's head. And then the next picture, he had it, and he was holding this something in his hand that looked to be a mask, and it was him, Simon, the man. This blue blood order was basically the entry level to another order called the Black Cube Society. And in that particular society, there was another book. And the cover of the book, he only saw the pictures of it. It was a black book with a black pyramidal onyx looking thing on the top of it. He's like, I didn't open that book. I didn't see it. I only opened the blue book. And the writing was in Arabic. I figured it out. He goes, it was Arabic. But then half of it ended, and the rest was in this other weird language, which I figured out was Hebrew. And even then, the back of the book, it was Greek, ancient Greek. 3 languages in one book. Why? He's like, years later, he goes, I was in my 30s. He goes, I got it deciphered, and they read it to me. He goes, and it was unbelievable. The book literally tells you how to walk through other dimensions, to other portals, to go to other worlds, and how to commit sacrifices of living beings from each of these different planes of existence, which gives you more power to move in and out of reality. And to ultimately go to the world, the black world, what they called the upside down. And there was a drawing, he said. It was a pyramid, upside down pyramid, like a triangle. But there were steps on it. He goes, it was weird. He's like, and this Simon individual, he was the head of this black cube. He was the gatekeeper, as they called him. He's like, my grandfather was second in the Blue Order. And so one day, my grandfather goes out there to the storage. I had moved everything back in there. He comes to me with tears in his eyes. I'm sitting on the porch. And he comes to me and he says, I know that you've looked through my things and you've done this, done that, blah, 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 you know. He's like, one of your friends has talked. He's like, and he's like, you don't understand. Y'all really angered this guy. Simon's really pissed. He goes, and I think you all know that he has a lot of power. And I think you know the whole deal. He's like, so I'm going to have to deal with this man. He's like, just know that whatever happens to me or to anyone else, I did this for you and for my wife, my children, and your cousins, my other grandchildren. He said, and then one day Simon disappeared. That was it. He moved to Chicago. He's like, my grandfather was happy, lived the rest of his life. He said, but he got really sick. And about a year before he passed away, he was ill a lot. So Joy Steven says, what does it say here? Sounds like a Stephen King story. Wow, it does. Well, I don't know. I've never seen Needful Things. Never seen it before. But Stephen King's written about everything esoteric you can imagine. So he's probably written about this too. He's also written about vampires, werewolves, and just about everything you can think of. So what ended up happening, his grandfather confesses to him. He says, look, I was involved in some really, really bad things. I was involved in a lot of dark, dark things. He goes, it was a slippery slope. This is months before he passed away. He's like, I've spent decades trying to atone for the things I did as a young man. I locked all that away. He's like, but there's something that you never found. He's like, and it's buried in the backyard. It's the Black Book. He's like, and that is the only thing that kept me from being taken out by this guy. He knew I had it, but he didn't know where. And he kept looking everywhere he looked everywhere. He's like, and I know he was lurking around, and I know you saw him. He would astral project. He would do all kinds of things. Things that people think are the things of fiction, but they're not. And I know they're not. You know they're not. And he said that one of the things that really disturbed him about his grandfather's confession was that his grandfather was genuinely scared. Like, he's like, I don't know how God's going to receive me for the things I've done. He said, I'm not blaming anybody but myself. He's like, but I let this man get too close to me. He's like, and then I ended up Sugar C says, whoa, this is really good. Nothing to listen to PRT while waiting for my car to be repaired. Oh, yeah, it's PRT. Kate Hunter, thank you for that donation. Appreciate that. That's actually the only donation of today. I didn't even realize that. Thank you. Appreciate it. But anyway, and people say we do this for the money. I'm not doing this for the money. The hell? Oh, shit. What his grandfather told him, he's like, and I had tears in my eyes. He goes, and I was listening to him, and he was telling me, he says, I don't want to go to hell. He says, and I just know that the things I did for you guys. He said, I know in my heart that Simon was evil and something had to be done. This is what he told me. This is where it gets really, really interesting right here. His grandfather, he said, just a few months before he passed away in his sleep. His kidneys literally just shut down. His body was just falling apart. You know, he's really old. He was 88 years old. And he's like, it was hard to sit there and watch him just fall apart. You know, this man who had done so much. He said that when he was dying, he said one time, he's like, I saw Simon. We witnessed his ability, his power, what he had. And this is why he was so determined to get that Black Book. He said, this man changed into a monster right in front of us. There were 6 of us. And when he named the people that saw it, only 2 were left alive. And he goes, when he began to name these people off, he goes, I knew it. He goes, and 3 of them accepted his offer to be a beast like him. And he said, I was in shock, and I was there with my 2 cousins. And my one cousin was like, he was my little cousin, but he asked, we were older. And he said, Grandpa, well, he called him Pawpaw. He said, Pawpaw, what did he look like? He said, I don't know. At first, he looked like a lizard. Like he had turned into this like dinosauric looking, I don't know what it was. And then he grew hair and got on all 4s and morphed into this sort of, let's say a Love Cat said abomination. There you go. Good word. But that's not what the word was used. But abomination would be appropriate. He's like, he looked like a giant wolf with spines all over him. Like a wolf with porcupine quills on his back. I don't know what he was. He's like, and I'm looking at this, and we're all drinking. And now, he's like, I got to tell you, we were drinking absinthe. So he goes, you remember earlier in the story when he said they called it being in the absence, right? He's like, it was absinthe. It was called being in the absinthe. They would take this absinthe, the real stuff, the green fairy, and they would go into an altered state of consciousness because they would use these crushed up mushrooms and some other things, and they would drink it all together, this potent cocktail. They would leave their bodies. He goes, and some of the guys were able to achieve this transformation. And he asked his grandfather, he was like, did you ever do this? He says, no. He's like, it required a blood oath to the devil. Now, the devil, subjective, like what or who is the devil? There's multiple devils. Which devil was it? He didn't say. And he goes, and I didn't ask. Hellhound, yeah, that's Wedge, maybe. But this Simon was an evil bastard who was power hungry and determined. And this guy knew politicians, and he knew all kinds of people from around the state. And he was always going to Chicago, and he knew all these people. This guy was wholly evil, W-H-O, not H-O. No, holy. Completely evil. He's like, and when he would get angry, his eyes would slit up like a lizard. So what Justin told me, he says, I don't know if you're believing me or not. I was quiet at that time. I was just listening to your story, Justin. You know that. And he asked me what I thought about it. And so I kind of broke it to him. I said, look, I would say this is groundbreaking stuff, but I've heard this before. Not exactly like that, and not downplaying what Justin told me. But I was like, yeah, I've been hearing this a lot lately, because now floodgates are open. Send me your stories, Josh Turner at prtpodcast.com. Don't be afraid to tell me what you've experienced or what you know. And believe me, you can jump around on the timeline. You can tell it however you want. I will put it together, flesh it out, and I will produce it the way that it needs to be told. Now, Justin did do that. He jumped around, and we put it together. And I have help. Tony and Anthony watch me do it. I'm joking. And they do their part. So does Nellie. So does everybody else. We here at PRT, we work together as a team. It's not just me. And I'm not the sole person in charge of picking out stories. So if I haven't told your story yet, don't just blame me. Blame them too. Okay. I It's funny. I was going to say I'm just a human, and somebody just said, a human being just said, is the black book the same as the one Joel and his friend had? Did Simon have a demon on him? Those questions I don't know. I don't know. I did ask, though, if he ever decided to go and dig in to the backyard. And he said no. I said, so what happened to the house? He's like, my uncle has it. He's like, my uncle's a great guy. He's like, he offered to just, him and his wife, just let me take it over. Let me live there for free. He's like, but without my grandparents there, it's just not the same. My grandmother died a year after my grandfather. Yes, we're having a show tonight. This is not going to, we're just trying to see how many people would show up for a Saturday. We're trying to get a feel for a day slot and how we're going to do that with Rumble and how we're going to do it all. So that's what we're doing. This is kind of a test run. But it's a story that needed to be told because there's a lot of them. I'm backed up big time. Thank you for the donations. We appreciate that here at PRT. Eve here and Josh Casto. Great story, scary stuff. Yeah. It is. It's. Marquetta, that is an absolutely great question because I think he was the same age as his grandfather, but he was just ambitious and had the will to feed it, which I'm ambitious and have the will to feed it, but not in the way that guy. I'm never going to do anything demonic or satanic to get to where I need to be. To me, the Lord God, the Father of Christ, if he so wills it, then I live. If he wills it, then I die. And whatever his will is, then it shall be. He can give you everything or he can take it all away. And I'm accepting of whatever his decision is. I completely submit myself to the will of God, as we all should, lest we end up a beast like Simon, the busybody, evil guy. I don't know this guy, but I feel like I do. I feel like I've met him 1,000 times. I feel like I met him downtown when I was working in the club scene. I feel like I've met him when I was, building my company, doing security. I felt like I've met him in the construction business. I felt like I met him when I was coaching. And some of the jealous people like, oh, he don't know what he's doing. Let me coach you. I'm the master. There's always a Simon. I felt like I met him here in the paranormal community. I met 100 of them. They never go away. They just keep coming back, being evil bastards, living forever, and just causing all kinds of problems for people until eventually it catches up to them. Then they flip out and go crazy. Who knows? But we deal with these people all the time, folks. Evil people. Not content with just living their lives and letting people be. Catching you alone and threatening you and saying all kinds of crazy stuff. That's what people do. But I did ask him this. I said, do you believe that if you went back and dug into that backyard that you would find the black book? And he says, yeah, I believe it's there somewhere. He goes, and one day in passing, I talked to my uncle about it. He goes, and my uncle's getting up there in years now. And he's got a bum leg. He goes, I go and I help him. Justin seems like a really nice guy, like genuinely good-hearted person. And he's like, we were sitting on the back porch drinking hard lemonade. He's like, my aunt, she makes it. It's really good. And I can't drink, But he said that, he goes, we were drinking hard lemonade and just sitting there shooting the breeze. We did some yard work. He goes, the yard is huge. It's like 2.5 acres. And not just the yard, but the property is like 2 acres or whatever, a little over 2 acres, he said. And he said, we were sitting there talking. He goes, and I told my uncle, I was like, do you think we should look for the book? And he goes, yeah, dig up the yard. They kind of have a good idea where it's at. He's like, no way. Just leave it. Hopefully it rots into the earth. That's what his uncle said. He said, for years, this creepy old bastard, talking about Simon, He's like, he never aged. He always just looked like an old guy. Like he turned 60 and just stayed 60 for 30 years, you know. And he said, I just remember him ruining so many birthdays, so many just holidays, showing up unannounced, not, you know, going where he's not invited, just being a nuisance, always in people's business, messing with people, messing with women. It's unfortunate. There's so many people that are really like that. They are. And if they were even to sniff a little bit of power, no matter how evil they would have to be, or no matter what they would have to do to achieve it, they would do it. Believe me. With no regard for God. But then they talk about God constantly. And that's what this guy did. He was telling Justin like all the time, oh, well, God would be angry with you. God would do this. God would do that. He said years later, he said he was talking to his uncle. His uncle had had some choice words with him one time. He said, who is God to you, Simon? He goes, we got into an argument right there in the front room. He goes, and I would have punched him in the face that day had my dad not intervened. That's Justin's grandfather. And then he told Justin, he goes, and I'm no doubt in my mind that that guy probably would have ripped me limb from limb because he was evil. Justin told him, he's like, you know, what his grandfather had said. And they were convinced that he was, he had something supernatural about him. S says, Josh, unfortunately, I didn't get reply from you when I send my email. Hope my email isn't lost. I hope so too. Hope not either. Resend it. Just, I mean, you know, I deleted a bunch of them on accident the other day, and it was, oh my God, yeah, thinking about that. One of the many, many things I gotta, you know. But anyways, that's the story, you know. His uncle thinks that it's best to just leave it alone. And he says, and I do too. He says, I have children now. He's like, and they were playing baseball in the backyard of my grandfather's house. He's like, not a day goes by that I don't think about him. He said, and one day, he goes, I was deep, deep, deep in prayer. I mean, I was praying hard. He goes, my wife's sister was really sick. She was dying. He's like, and we were in a prayer circle and we were just praying really hard. He's like, and I looked up in the corner of the room. I saw my grandfather standing there with his head down, bowed, his hands folded in front of him. He goes, and I just stared at him. He didn't look at me. He's like, and I lowered my head and I continued to pray. He's like, and then that night I went to sleep. We were waking up by the news that my wife's sister had passed away. He's like, and I walked down to the kitchen. He goes, and there was my grandfather looking at the newspaper like nothing had happened. He goes, and I was like yawning, shocked, you know, just like, whoa. He goes, and I was going to get my day started. It was a little early. It was like 5 a.m. He's like, literally dropped my coffee mug right there on the floor. And it hit with a thud. He's like, and it didn't even break or chip. It was my favorite mug. And the mug, he's like, I picked it up and I was looking at it because my grandfather, he was there for a minute. He was gone, you know. And the mug says, I love my grandpa. I thought that was interesting. He said, in the end, he goes, the day before my grandfather died, we didn't know that he was going to pass away. We just knew he was really ill. His kidneys were failing. He was on dialysis. There was a lot of things going on. Other than that, he was healthy. He just had kidney issues, whatever. But it was like he went downhill real quick, you know. And he said the night before, my grandfather said, I can feel it coming. I'm going to be gone soon. And he's like, I want you to pray with me. He's like, and me and my Mima, we prayed together with, for him. And he was like asking God to allow him to be forgiven, to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Almost like he wasn't sure, And so eventually he passed over. He goes, and when he passed, my grandmother was there with him. I showed up right as he was crossing over. He goes, and there was a peace in the room. We all felt it. My grandmother felt it. She died a year later. He says, I think she died of a broken heart. She just couldn't go on. So that's that. That's interesting. Margot says, this is a great story and definitely believe it. The Assassin's Creed video games, as of late, have really been revealing a lot of this stuff. And yes, Stephen King does write about everything he knows. I don't think he writes about everything he knows. I think he knows a lot more than he writes. I think he's writing about a lot of what he knows, but there's a lot that Mr. King is not telling us. And I think the reason that these stories sound familiar in some ways is not because these people are making these stories up or I'm making them up. The truth is the truth. And I think that these people that are doing these stories, they're giving you caveats. They're telling you this is real. This stuff is really happening. This is what's going on. And Nevaeh's Angel says, Eek, I knew Simon wasn't just human. His story is creepy as heck. He was definitely something of evil. I will send stories. I have many. I am an empath. I have short stories, all creepy. Yeah, send your stories. That's what makes the show go round. Marquetta, she says, he sounds like my dad's ex-business partner. Wow. And S says, evil doesn't die easily, unfortunately. No, it does not die easy. Somebody said Paul Sinclair is a PRT affiliate. What was that all about? Oh, Joel Burgess. Yeah, hey, Joel. Have you heard of Paul Sinclair, Truth Proof? Yeah, I've been on his show. He's been on my show. He was trying to get me on his show recently. So is James Bartley. And I apologize because those guys, one of them's in Australia, Bartley's in Australia, and Sinclair's in England. And the time difference is just hard. And I didn't mean to, but I kind of stood them up because I got confused about the times and the days. But I will be on their shows again. I've never been on Bartley's show, but I told them I would do it. They're my friends. I only do my friends' shows. When your time is limited and you don't have a lot of it and you're doing the show yourself, I don't have time to waste on people's shows that I don't know. I get offered on shows weekly, but I just don't. I turned down the unexplained. And I had an offer on Coast to Coast a couple times from different friends of mine that were like, hey, go be on Coast to Coast. I didn't do it. I will eventually, I will. I could probably do it, pretty soon, but I just don't, and I know that would expand and grow the show quickly in the audience. But here's what I'm going to tell you, and you may think I'm playing around here, but I'm not. I don't want to blow up real quick, because then you get all these people that you don't know. You don't know who these people are. You're not really, this is a family to me. The PRT team, the PRT people, the people, not just the people who donate and everybody that buys the memberships. So, and the memberships don't only do anything but make your name green. I'll be real honest with you, because we don't put anything behind a paywall. It makes you stand out to me. I can see the letter, like William is on here. William Bays. Yeah, I mean, it's green. So I know that you bought a membership. I know there somebody bought you a membership, and it makes you stand out as a supporter of PRT. But I don't put anything behind a paywall at all. So I don't do a members only thing. Now, I'm not knocking people who do that. There's a lot of people who do that, the members only content, and that's great. But I don't want people to have to pay for my stuff ever. If there comes a time when I'm hurting financially or things go bad and go south or whatever, I'll come to you and I'll straight up be that way. But it's never going to be ever out of greed, just because I want to make money. Like, we got a donation from Kate Hunter. It was like, I don't know, what, hour and a half into the story or whatever, the encounter. I didn't even notice that nobody had even donated. I hadn't even noticed. I'm not here to make money. I'm not doing this for making money. I'll bet you do, Joel. Joel says, I got strange encounters to share with y'all. It's to do with witchcraft. Yeah. You know, I just, when you look at these, S says, Josh, I sent you a vampire email and a werewolf. I'll try to send it back. Please do. Yeah, Joel. Yeah. Thank you for that donation, Foxtel. I appreciate that. We all do. Bryce Edwards says, you have to come on mine and Truth and Bass, new podcast about all things wrestling. Never have been a really big fan of wrestling. My brother was, and all my cousins were, and all my friends. But I was like not really into it, man. I just didn't like looking at a bunch of sweaty dudes in their underwear. Don't knock people who were, but I had my favorites. Like I did have my favorites. I loved the Road Warriors, and I know a lot about it, because I was around people who watched it, so I absorbed it, so I can go through it and tell you a lot about it, but I never was real into it. It was kind of like a big soap opera thing. I have a couple friends, actually three, we're all professional wrestlers. Obviously Lance Hoyt was on my show talking about his werewolf encounter. But it's cool, but it's not really my thing. Now, tonight, Truth will be on the show with me tonight, with me, Rob Yox, and Chris James. So tonight, we're going to do the UAP thing, and we're going to talk about abduction and the different types of alien entities that are out there that supposedly exist. Alien, I don't say they don't supposedly, they do exist, but what are they? We don't know. But, yeah, you're right, Brett. It could be. Could be Posh Lady 43. That could be Stephen King. Could be. I don't know. I don't know him. So said Joel. Okay. He said if it's possible, okay, with Wolf, I'm happy to come on the live stream and share my encounters with shapeshifting things. That would be great. Joel, do me a favor though. Email me, reach out to me, and maybe we could do that. We can set up a time for you to do that and come on. I have to jump off right now in a few minutes, but I would love, Joel, for you to do that, please. To come on, that would be great. Could be too. He could be part of it. I don't know. Can you imagine what that house is like, Scotty? Scotty says I should go check out Stephen King's house in Maine sometime. That's not what the one I'm talking about. He says Alistair Crowley's retirement home, 60 miles. Man, can you imagine the dark energy in those places? I can't even. No, I couldn't. I would not go in there. It would be too oppressive. I wouldn't be able to breathe. Audacious says, I don't think blowing up is good. Like, we got a nice crowd right now. You can still keep up with the chat. Yeah. Because it will eventually get to where it's going to be bigger. And we want it to be bigger, because the bigger we go, though, two things right here. I said two things. Two things right here. You get bigger, you have the ability to expand and do more projects. You can do more. We can do like documentaries, docu-series, things have been pitched to me already. I had a guy pitching to me something from New York the other day, but I'm not doing anything unless I get executive producer privileges, and if that's not going to happen, well, I'm not doing it. Another guy offered me $750,000 for what I got, and I said, I'm not doing that either. He said, well, no, that's more money than you're making on the show. Yeah, it's more money than I'm making on the show, but this is not what it's, I'm not here trying to, this is not my income. I mean, it helps, and it keeps me from having to feed the show from my businesses, which is what I've been having to do up until recently. But like I said, I'm not going to sit here and try to turn this into a money-making thing, and I'm not trying to do this for fun or for, for financial gain. It's for fun. And as long as I keep it that way, I'm happy. This is my passion, folks. This is what I enjoy doing. And Mammy says, thank you for the no paywall. Wolf, greatly appreciate it. Yeah, I know, because that's not, to me, I don't knock the people who do it, because I know some of these smaller channels, they have to do that because they're trying to survive financially, and I get it. They do what they got to do, but that's just not me. I'm not going to do that. That to me would just be smacks of greed. Like I said, I know people who do that, and they're not being greedy. They're doing what they have to do to get people to buy the memberships, and so they get people to commit, and it helps them because they need it financially, because it's a part of their income. But some of these people, they're doing it just because they're greedy. I mean, they're just flat out greedy. And so I'm not going to do that. If there comes a time when I need to do that or whatever, I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But for now, I have no plans on ever doing that, because there are a lot of people who enjoy the show who can't afford to donate and can't afford to help, and that's fine. And if you can't afford it, do it. But if you think for 1 second that money is something you need, that you will need to use for yourself, don't do it. Don't even give it a second thought. Keep it in your pocket and do what you got to do. And even if it's not something you need, if it's something you want, say you want to buy a new shirt or a purse or whatever, and that's more important to you, you do what you got to do. Okay? We're here at PRT. We'll be fine. We'll just have to eat Vienna sausages and just eat crackers and drink toilet water. I'm joking, folks. Just kidding, messing with you. Don't ever think that we're some priority in your life, that you have to pay us. Now, do I believe that we should get paid for our time? Absolutely. But that's called views, likes, and clicks. And the donations and things that people give, that's just the bonus to me, Building the brand is very important right now, and eventually growing. But I want to grow like this. You know what I mean? Growing like this, you're like, who's all these people? Which is kind of, like I was showing people the numbers the other day. We're growing at about 700 and something, 790 or something like that, but it's gone down. Because at one point we were growing pretty quick, and it was like a 2.5, 2.6, and we hit this growth spurt, and then it kind of tapered down. And that's fine. You do that. It's an ebb and flow. It comes and goes. But we're not buying subs. We're not buying views, likes. We're not using fake stories, AI stories, or what do you call this? The fake comment. People make fake comments even. We're not doing any of that crap. We're all real. It's organic. And I say it like not organic like a food, but using it as an analogy, we're organic. It's growing organically, and we're not doing some ridiculous bullshit. I mean, this is what these people are doing. They're all faking the funk. Not all of them. There's good people out there, like the ones I affiliate with and associate with on a regular basis. They're not doing the bullshit. That's why I associate with them. But there is this sort of passive aggression that comes from some of these other content creators toward one another, and I get it too. I don't care. Let them be upset. I don't care. They'll be like, "Oh, you're doing great," but they really don't. They really don't. They're not. They don't like that you're bigger or stronger or whatever. I don't bully them. I don't. And even when they say things, most of the time, I don't even respond. Like I said, what you hear about, this is probably 10%. I get a lot of hate, a ton of it. And I don't throw it on you guys. I just, sometimes, though, things need to be said. Like when they start attacking innocent people, because I don't look at myself as innocent. They want to attack me, that's fine. I'm not an innocent person. You know, I've antagonized people because I've opened my mouth and I've said things to people because I think it needed to be said, because nobody else is telling these bastards anything. So then I tell them, look, you're full of shit. So, you know, that makes me, I guess, not an innocent person because I've spoken out. So I get what I get, but I'm going to give you back what you give me. Now, some of these people, though, I mean, they're just doing what they do, man, and they get attacked, and it's not right. And I hate that. And I hate when the charlatans, like, what right do you have to be angry and pissed off at? You're frauding people and you're mad? You're mad? What the hell are you mad about? Shut up. Playing around for long enough. It's time to raise the ships, to raise all ships. You know? The better someone does, the better the others should do. And I think Merkel actually said this one time. He said, I know he did, because it was me and him, and we were talking, and he might have said it on his show or when he was on, I think he was on my show and he said it. But he said, he's like, you know, if somebody else is doing better than me, then that's a sign for me to do better. And we need to do better. Instead of being upset with the person that's kicking your ass, you should be asking yourself, why are they kicking our ass? You know, maybe we need to go and do better and get, you know, whatever needs to be done. Something needs to be done. Hey, Wolf, did you know there was a Jeepers Creepers comic and he was called the Aztec Dragon? Did not know that. And there's a comic book about it? The Aztec Dragon. So that's what they say he is? Like he's, that's interesting. There's a story I got that I haven't told yet, and it's on my notes right here. And it is about that, as somebody from Mexico City. Thank you, Cindy Monet. She says, or is it Manette or Monet? I don't know. Earlier this week, you mentioned needing the lives added to a catalog. I could totally help, and we'll send a sample. I do need some help. I recruited a couple people, but I guess they're busy, whatever. And so, oh, and Zendy, thank you for that donation. I didn't even see it. Daniel Rodriguez, Josh, any camping fans? What do you mean by that? Camping? Are there fans of camping? What do you mean? Plans. Okay. That makes a little more sense. Any Bigfoot stories from Cedar Creek Lake? I'd have to go and look. I have a ton of Bigfoot stories. At least people think that they're Bigfoot. I don't know. Posh Lady 43, that's a good question. We had gotten together the bulk of the money we were going to put into it, because we have to take, you know, what we make from the donations and from what we make from the ads and all that. We try to limit the ads on our shows too. The other day I was watching that Billy Carson, who it was kind of pissing me off. I don't know about him. But I was watching, and dude, he had an ad on there every 2 seconds. Like, what the hell are you doing, dude? Like, really? The hell you think you are that you're gonna like literally? I mean, like, I'm not joking. I was trying to like on my account, it just there was nothing because I have the YouTube Premium, but trying to watch it, from a secondary, it wasn't a secondary account. It was what's his face, his account, Tony's or whatever. And he was trying to watch it, and he just like it was an ad every like 2 minutes. I mean, like it was every little lines all the way. Like, really, dude? Like, okay, so somebody just to listen to you, and I mean, he's okay, but you want somebody to listen to a commercial every like 5 minutes or whatever the F, man. To hell with that dude, man. Sorry. And he might give me some backlash, whatever. I don't give a shit, whatever. That pissed me off. I was just like, this is bullshit. I mean, really and truly, that's bullshit. What is that? I mean, I love Paul Wallace. I like him a lot, but I don't know who put that together. And I don't want to blame Carson because I don't know if it was him himself, but I mean, I would never do that. I would never put a video out that everybody wants to watch. And because tens of thousands of people are going to watch it, so that every 5 minutes there's a freaking commercial on there, so that that they have to be forced to sit through or whatever. Piss off, dude. No. And it's not so groundbreaking that others can't do the freaking research. You watch what happens in the coming years if they let me live. You watch what we figure out. Watch. It says, Mr. Josh, if I'm not being nosy, I'm curious of how much you need for your cameras, your equipment. I just want to see how much I can donate later on. Don't stress yourself out about it. If you can help, you can help. If you can't, you can't. Here's the thing. I have somebody who messaged me about equipment, and she's got the equipment, and she's going to try to make us a deal or whatever. I imagine, I don't know, it'd probably be $2 or $3 grand. I mean, for what she's got, but that'll get it done. And I won't have to use someone else as a freelancer. And not that I don't mind collaborating with these other people, but then it becomes part of their stuff. And here's the thing, folks, I don't want to be beholden to someone else saying, well, I want to do this, because I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to capture the images and everything, and then they're going to have it on their deal, and they could make you pay for it to watch me do things. You see what I'm saying? So collaborating, there has to be an agreement going into it saying, look, you're not going to be able to just cash in on what I'm doing because I'm not trying to cash in. If you're doing that, that's not something I want to be a part of. If your whole thing is about cashing in on people, I'm not down with that. So that's not me. I want to grow naturally. I want to grow organically. And the money comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. This is not what this is for. I have a business. That's the thing people don't understand. When you come into this, you already have a business. You're already established financially. I'm not doing this because I need to do this. Now, I'd like to not have to have my businesses feeding this and paying for everything. So it does help that people help out and whatever. But I'm not asking anybody to do that. And don't stress yourself out trying to do it. If you feel anything at all like you need that money, don't do it. If you feel like even if there's something that you want in your life and it's more important than this, then you do that. Take care of you, because I want a happy audience that comes in here and doesn't feel put upon or resentful because I'm hiding behind a paywall or I'm asking you for donations. One of the things I'm sick of is this lie that these bastards are trying to spin, that I'm over here begging for money. When they said he's always begging for money, I've never done that. I've made jokes about that because that's the big joke that people keep saying that. I don't do that. I've never got on here and been like, I asked for help one time with the equipment, but that was after everybody had already said that. Not everybody, but these fuckers, excuse my language, the shitheads, man. There was one lady on there talking about, he's always crying and begging for whatever. Lady, do you even watch the show? No, you don't. You're too busy lying and following people who are lying. Yeah, the Road Warriors were really cool, huh, Margot? Too bad Hawk died. Carrie Love says, love some James Bartley. James Bartley's awesome. He's really awesome. I owe him an apology because I was supposed to record with him yesterday, and I didn't get to, I'm going to get it done, man. I really feel bad about that. What is this? Cutter 1959. When I was a little boy, my great uncle lived at Tanglewood, Texas. I know where Tanglewood is. I used to live right outside of there. He was a foreman of a large cattle ranch. He warned us not to wander off, and especially after dark because of the big timber wolf guy. Cutter, do you have any more information about that? Because Tanglewood was not far from where we lived. I lived there for a few months with my dad, my stepmom, and man, I had a weird encounter one time. I've had a lot of weird encounters, but I don't count them as like encounters. But I had something happen when I got way far out there going down these dirt roads, these county roads in Texas. These dirt roads, they go way out there, and I was out there near Tanglewood, and I heard this god awful howling coming from these pastures, and it was creepy, man. I can't tell you what it was, man. I don't know. They got my ass out of there, and that was probably the summer before I saw the Dogman in Taylor. That was like in July, something like that, when that happened. And then I saw the Dogman in October, if that's what you want to call it, the Dogman, werewolf, whatever. Cutter, get in touch with me. You got my email, joshturner@prtpodcast.com. And S says, I didn't share stories because my English isn't the best. Don't let that stop you. I've interviewed people from all over the world, and sometimes it's a little hard getting but we can manage, believe me. Thank you for that, Brett. Brant Lancelotti says, so glad you decided to keep on doing what you do, Josh. Definitely respect your principles, bro. Try to have principles. Jojo, if you're sleepy, get to sleep. You don't have to sit here and moderate. We got other people. And Maddie, you just put down on there. Yeah, Joanne says that Stephen King's house isn't creepy at all. I mean, I don't know that it would be. I mean, it's just a house, but who knows what kind of energy's in there. What I'm talking about was Aleister Crowley's retirement home. When the person was talking about that, can you imagine what's in that house? That's what I was talking about, Joanne. Valerie Cap says, I'm broke. I need my money financially. Do what you got to do, man. There's a lot of broke people, man. I'm not asking for it. If you get too big, doesn't it cut your friends' channels out? People leave their channels to come over here the minute you go live. I've seen that a lot. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. So Audacious Amber says, if you get too big, doesn't it cut your friends' channels out? People leave their channels to come over here the minute you go live. I've seen that a lot. I try not to go live when they're live. If you notice, like, okay, for Barton, for example, when he goes live on Wednesdays, I'm not live. Blondes and Booze, I actually work with them, and they go live on Friday right before I do. Also, on Tuesday night, I cut it short for Boomer, BMR. Big Tex, I don't go on Monday nights typically because he's gone live. And so I try not to step on people's toes. So tell me who is going live when I'm going live. The only one that I'm good friends with that kind of goes live when I go live is Matt from 412. But I can't figure out what his schedule is because he goes live at different times, and I can't. I've said this before. Like, I don't have a set schedule with that dude, man. It just seems like every time I turn around, he's on there doing something. And he doesn't work with others. Matt, this is no knock on you. I love Matt from 412. He's a good friend of mine. I talk to him pretty regularly, but I've said this to him. I kind of need to know when he's going to be doing what he does, because I don't know when he's going to be doing what he does. And I was doing Tuesday before he was, and then he started doing Tuesdays. So if he's going head to head with me when I'm on, sorry, but that's not my fault. That's not my problem. I've been doing Tuesdays forever. I've been doing Tuesday used to be the live stream. It was been in place for years now. So if you decide that you're just going to do Tuesday, and don't regard the other people that are on Tuesday, that's on you. If you don't get people to go to your show, that's not my fault. Like I said, this isn't no knock. I'll talk to Matt about this. It's something we need to talk about. I'll call him actually and talk about it. But Like I said, I love Mad Imps. She's a good friend of mine. He was at my conference. I don't try to step on people's toes. I don't try to go live when other people are going live. But at some point you will, because I have to grow and I have to be able to be on, more, because I have a lot more encounters that people give me. Now they're getting a lot, they're benefiting from it too, though, because a lot of people are just giving them their encounters and letting them tell them, which is fine because I have so much of it. I can't get it all out there. So and I mean, I don't think me going live at the same time that somebody like Ninokio or Merkel, it's not going to hurt those guys, or Expanded Perspectives. Those are big podcasts. Those are big shows. Those are big boys on the block. And I love all those guys. I mean, but you're not going to hurt them. They got their audience. People are going to go to them no matter what. So it doesn't really matter if you're going the same time they are. They're not going to leave them to come watch us. Well, some people will, but I don't shy away from questions either. Somebody had made that little schneidi comment on Facebook. When I make a comment on there that he doesn't like, they remove it. He doesn't answer me. He doesn't talk to me. He's a coward. He ignores me when I say things. I get blocked. I'm like, bullshit. There ain't no damn comment on that thing that's going to make me go, oh, gee, Scoops, I better be out of here. Oh, my gosh, I'm so scared of the. I don't give a damn what you say. You can say anything you want. I don't give a crap as long as it's not inappropriate, But don't be upset and go crying on Facebook or Instagram or Facebook or any others, whatever. When I confront you and say, "Hey, you said this and that," and I said something to you, don't go to do the baby crying and be on there with your little, he be poop a caca head, because that's what you do. After you make the little snarky comment and I said something to you about it, he's got such a thin skin. Like, it's not about being thin skinned. It's about calling a spade a spade. You're going to sit up here and say something. I'm going to say something to you and say, hey, this is what you said. I mean, why are you? And we can talk about it. Let's talk about it like adults. Now, if you want to be snippy and be a turd and think that you're cute and you want to match wits with me, trust me, brother, sister, whoever you are, you're not going to outwit me. Keep trying. A lot bigger, better, and stronger people than you have tried to crush me in my life. You think that I'm worried about some bad words? People worrying about bad words is why we got the guy in office we got in office now. You see how the economy is? It sucks. You know why? Because people didn't like the bad words, the mean words or whatever, the mean, whatever the shit he was doing, the tweets. That's why we have these problems now. I could give a shit what that guy tweeted. I don't give a crap what he said or did. As long as the economy ran the way it was supposed to, that's what we care about. That's what matters, right? And somebody with the morals. He wasn't the most moral man, but he sure had more than this dude up there now. I never even liked the guy. I hated when he was on that show. You're fired. You're fired. Like, it's annoying. And I thought, this guy's going to be our president. But who did we have? We had the evil witch, the wicked witch of the earth. So what choice did we have? Huh? And now you got a guy that shits his pants in front of the Pope and falls down upstairs. What do you got, folks? This is what we're dealing with? Right? Give me a break. I run the shit out of this country if I was. But if I ever ran for office, somebody was joking about that. They said, "What would you do?" I was like, "I would change a lot of things, and I would make this country run. The trains and the planes and the automobiles would work the way they're supposed to. That's how I would make it work. Things would run on time. Things would do the way they're supposed to do." The problem, though, is that they'd be like, this guy has openly said he believes in reptilians and werewolves. And I'd be talking and debating with the asshole. And I'd be like, yeah, because you're one of them. This guy is literally, he's one of them. They eat people. It's the truth. They take your children. You think I'm joking? Yeah, that's what they do. And they would never, they'd kill me, dude. They'd make me, give me the cancer or something, put it in my car seat, whatever. You guys know it. You know it's true. So Maddie says, Wolf, so you think my Spanish isn't good enough? Is that what you're saying? You little turd. How dare you? How dare you? I'm messing with you. Well, I better not say that because then they'll go, we're protecting women, and he's attacking little Maddie again. Josh, exactly. I believe you are still alive, knowing all the things that you know in the world, exposing the dark side of spiritual world because God is with you and He's supreme. Rethro Miro. I hope God is with me. Sometimes I feel like maybe. Oh, see, Josh, you figured it out. This is Legend of Zelda. Yeah, Hyrule. See. Yeah, see, I love my Legend of Zelda. Yeah, I got another one right here too, but it's not open yet. It was a gift. They're like, people give him things. Like, you're mad? Why? Nobody gives you anything? Because you're a little shit ass? You don't deserve it? It says, tosses fry bread to Josh Turner. You give me coffee, you give me ethereal coffee and fry bread? I appreciate it, brother. Put questions in all caps. And it says, and you're right, he's allowed to stand solo and do great. Yeah. Dorothy Metcalf, how you doing, my local loss tonight? Thank you for pointing that out. Melissa says, once everyone gets their own core base group, it will happen for them. Josh always sends his paratroopers to others' lives to show support. But when PRT pops off, I'm going to go to my home base. PRT, yeah. And then Matt says, Wolf isn't the one blocking or deleting people's comments. It's his moderator. So if you say something inappropriate or antagonistic, you're going to get removed. Yeah, very little. I don't actually ever delete. I just say, hey, is this person doing this and that, And Liberty, you donate so much and you've helped so much. I do it for you, okay, Liberty, but it's not too many people around here really deserve it. Yeah, seriously, I'm fat and I need donations. My name is Don Prickler. It's fun to poke the bear until the bear bites back. Exactly. Wolf the Bear King. I can tell you right now. Melissa, I would love to post that comment, but I probably shouldn't. It is a skin suit. I can see that. Kez McIntyre. Yep, that's what I call her too. Stupid person that she is. It's Flash. Walnut sauce. Ooh. Exactly. Like, who gives a crap? Like, let them scream and let them shout. We're going to win. There ain't no doubt. Thank you. Miss Wolf's Sir Carrington impression voice. Oh, you mean Lord, what was his name? Lord Worthington. Lord Worthington is never afraid. Never. Not even when the Dogman grabbed me by my butt. I was not afraid. I was a little nervous, a little upset, and thought, man, I should have worked my glutes out harder. I hope he's happy and doesn't try to take liberties. Then I turned and I elbowed him. And then I body slammed him, giving him an atomic elbow, defeating him. Lord Worthington always wins. The Dogman writhed in agony. We should do it in, what's his name? What's his voice? The Dogman writhed in agony, dying, turning back to his form of a despicable, pitiable creature, the human being. Because the Dogman is actually a werewolf. David Attenborough. 110-pound little girl. He's a 110-pound little girl. You try to protect women. Dorothy says she's waiting on Ken's class to start. Now, I got to say, Ken and I talked about his classes the other day. Ken, great friend of mine, Ken Gerhardt. I love him to death. But don't let him get fill your brain too much with, oh, they're just physical cryptid creatures that go out and you got to look for evidence, whatever. Yeah, that's great. But like I said, I love Ken. I love him. But I worry because Ken, he actually thinks that Bigfoot are like, they're harmless. And I've told him, and Lyle doesn't really share the same, all my friends have a little different take on it, but I've talked to all of them and I said, please, I'm not joking. I told Ken this. I said, I love you like a brother. He's a brother to me. And him and Barton both, but me and Barton are very cautious around these things. And Ken's not. Ken's like, oh, they're not going to hurt you. And I'm like, please don't think like that. I said, please don't think that. I've pleaded with Ann to tell him too, because I care about him and I want anything to happen to him. I want him going out there and being too nonchalant with these things and thinking that they're not going to hurt you, because I believe they can and will hurt you. I do. I really do. Oh, Liberty, thank you for that donation. For the Catman, seriously, you guys. Can't do my voice now. Reading the comments. Now we're eating smoked goose. Thanks, dude. Appreciate it. The wind day, yeah, you know what, Junior? That is something we need to talk about, because I do have some the wind day stories that I need to get into. There's a bunch of them, dude. I tell you what, I need to get back to Yahola Tiger, the Cherokee guy, the real Cherokee guy, not this guy somebody that pretends to be Cherokee. He's actually Cherokee. He's got the War Cry podcast. And, and talk to him about the little people, because he himself has said that the little people scare him. And I don't blame him. I mean, because they're creepy. They're scary. So my hands are, well, actually, you know what? It's weird. My right hand is cold. I got the ceiling fan going. That's probably why. I got to get out of here. I got to jump out of here. I got to take my wife somewhere. But I can do a whole show on duendes. I'll get it together. Kez McIntyre, dude, message Anthony, email me, and I'll send it to Anthony. If you don't have Anthony, get Anthony on your Facebook as messenger. He can tell you everything about the aquariums. It's been a while since I've even been messing with them. But yeah, that's one of the worst things too. And then getting ick, it's horrible. Like some of our Mbunas have passed because they got this weird stuff that's been going around, and it's like it's not new, but it's the water is so bad now. And like it's hard to get them acclimated, dude. And then they'll die. And you'll buy these fish. Like we were at the aquarium store the other day, just like a few days ago, and they want $149 for a fish. Okay, it's hard enough, right, to get them. I mean, just they could die so easily, and then you're out of that money. And like they had some of these saltwater fish, and they wanted like $50, $100. I'm like, are you kidding me? But these things are fragile, man, and then they could die, and they got to have them at a certain temperature and all this other crap. It's like your whole world is going to become taking care of those fish. I mean, it's like, God damn, man. I didn't say the G, man. I said, damn. Please don't. I do not say G, damn. So, I do a lot of other bad things, but I won't say G, damn. My grandfather taught me that a long time ago. Never just. It was his pet peeve. And it was my mother's pet peeve, so I don't say G damn. I just will not do it. And I think it's really bad. God's last name is not damn it. But I say damn. But I need to stop saying that because it's still a spinoff of that. But I'll just say it like, kind of like emphasizing damn, But forgive me for saying that, Lord God. In Christ's name, amen. Smurfy. When you can't identify a duende, it must be enormous. Really? Got jokes. Josh, have you received any more stories on immortals? Not that I know of. I take that back. I think a week or two ago, I got a story that was labeled something that but I haven't opened it and read it yet. Well, no, I did open it, but I didn't read into it. But yeah, I did, and it got put into a folder. So I will go back and I will see what that says. So yeah, we might. And I did get a few people that were kind of like verifying what I had said, that they had, they had heard stories, whatever, but it was nobody giving me something solid like a story that I could put on the show or an encounter that they had. But hopefully I'll get some more stuff on there, And like I said, I wasn't speaking ill of anybody. I'm not talking bad about anybody, I'm not talking bad about Ken or what's his face. I'm sure my enemies will listen and go, he's talking bad about Barton. He's talking bad about Ken. He's talking bad about whoever else I mentioned. Matt. Nope. These are my friends. You're not going to come between us. Don't try it. A lot of people try. They try to say things, and then they'll just make up shit because they can't come up with anything legit. Okay, and in the coming week, I have a guy coming on the show who I've known for years, and he's got a ton of encounters. He used to live down south of Austin, right outside of town, in an area where we have had a bunch of stories. He's about the fourth person that I've talked to over the last 6 months to a year who've given me some stories about that area. So when he comes on the show, we're going to be going back and forth on some encounters. And something weird that I saw over there one time, which I don't even, like I said, I've seen a lot of weird things. I don't count it all as encounters. I don't know. I'm hyper aware, which I think most people should be. But a lot of people aren't. So they're just like, I don't know what I saw. But if you're really paying attention and you're hyper aware, you'll know that these things are there. You'll know that they're out there. So we did pretty good. Did we hit 400? I don't know. I think we did. I think we hit over 400 at one point. That's not bad for a Saturday morning leading into a little afternoon here. So I like the results, but I don't know that this would be a good time because we have a Saturday night show. So we're just trying to fill out the weekend night, our weekend day, to see how it compares to the weekday day. Because a lot of people are at work, but a lot of people will listen while they're at work too. So we did that like on a Monday, and it seemed to work out pretty good. But we'll see. And so we're going to be on tonight. We're going to be on tonight at 8 o'clock, like we were supposed to be. That's several hours away, but we'll be back. And thank you for everybody that donated, and I appreciate it. And Tito, yesterday, I didn't say that you hadn't showed up late for the chat. That's not what I meant. What I meant was you always drop like a donation like late at the very end. Toey's making sure that I'm doing a good job. At the very end, she's like, I don't know if he did good, and then she'll throw it. That's what I meant, but I appreciate it. You did that yesterday, and you always help out, and I appreciate everything y'all do. I'll see you all tonight. I'm jumping off. Thank you for showing up and being part of what makes PRT what it is, which is the audience, because without an audience, it's just a guy talking. That's all it is. Thank you. I'll see you guys. Good night.